Hello, everybody. We are back at the Soulpreneur Podcast today again with Jessica and me. We had a great session last week, and today we want to dive deeper into a specific topic. And it's, of course, related to what we're offering with our mastermind. And the topic today is peer group, or to be a bit more precise, peer group exchanges. So I have a first question for you, Jessica. What do peer group exchanges mean for you? And how do you do it? What do you get out of it? Let me hear a bit what you can tell us about this topic.
So thanks, Martin, and hi, everyone. I hope you had a good week, and I wish you already a good start into the weekend. So peer groups for me are something very essential in general, not only the line of work I'm doing now, but already before. I think it's so crucial if you have people who are on the same level with you to talk about certain topics, not only strategic wise or business wise, like, oh, how could I acquire new customers? I think these are very nourishing conversation as well, but also like what comes actually up when I'm working, like not only with clients, but like, is there like a fear of showing myself more fully on LinkedIn or on YouTube? Like, what comes up? And for me, so I'm just finishing a mastermind where I was with other peers, mainly women who were just starting to build their own business, like also very heart-centered aligned. And there we definitely had there was the peer exchange with others, but it was on a different level. And we had a coach, which I loved because then this coach always like somehow facilitated the conversation again or brought it back to like, what does it actually mean? Because sometimes when it's just two people or more, it can like float away of like the main topic or like you do not really focused anymore. So I do have like other groups with women where we exchange, but there is more community like. And it's
Mhm.
like free and just like floating. Maybe it's because we're also only like women, I don't know. But for me,
Mhm.
there it doesn't really feel centered around what I really actually need because no one really takes the lead. So I really liked the mastermind I
Mhm.
was in. It was the first time for me that you had someone who facilitated it with clearer questions. But then
Mhm.
also for me, the peer exchange, which is very valuable to me, is the one I have with you as we talk a lot about our
Mhm.
own businesses and we give each other the space to express oneself. And then I also have it with other friends who are building their own companies now. But this is then really informal and like everything has place. And it's really like, for me, it's so valuable that I can just take my phone and create the voice message or write if something comes up and I feel like, oh, I want to share that. Sometimes not even to get another input, but just to be able to express it so it's not stuck in my mind anymore. Because sometimes for me, when it's stuck in my mind, it takes up more energy. It's exhausting to always like do everything by yourself. So it's nice that you have
Mhm.
different spaces where you can bring different aspects of you in. I think this is
Okay.
really what it means for me to have this peer exchange of people who I can show more and more of myself and bring more and more of myself in. Like from a business perspective, like as I said before, like strategies, but then also like what of other thoughts and desires do I have? Not only focusing on like, oh, this is a struggle I have, but really like sharing also the good things and bragging.
Mhm.
It's just something different when you're witnessed by someone else than when you do it just by yourself. And
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think it was also what just before we started this podcast, we had a little update, and I told you about the session I had with my guide on Friday. Like, because there was something that triggered me so fundamentally, and it's just a different essence to it when you're witnessed by someone. Like, I call this holding a safe space. And when you're
Mhm.
in a peer exchange, you're all holding the space together. It's not only one person.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think
Okay.
this is, yeah,
Mhm. Wow. So there's so
a
many
lot.
things you said in there. Gonna try to like pick out the different things you said, or just to summarize. So I think you said a few important things that there's you started with being at on the same level. So we talk a lot about being on the eye level or at eye level with someone. I think that's an important part you mentioned and described a bit examples. and also the trust or the safe space you mentioned. I think it goes along with that. And what I also thought interesting that you said there's like many different kind of peer exchanges or peer groups. There's some that are very specific, where you're in a program like the one we are doing. Also, you described it's very similar, where there's a coach facilitating or moderating the process. And then you also said, yeah, you mentioned friends. So even friends can be like a peer group, of course, at eye level or someone you trust. I think maybe sticking with that topic, that there's so many different kinds of peer exchanges or peer groups we're in. I mean, what's the biggest difference though when you look at being in a peer exchange with friends, let's say, and in a more formal way? Let's say it's more like either in a program or it's in exchange with people where there's this very specific topic. You mentioned entrepreneurs, where maybe those people are not in your close,
Mm-hmm.
circle of friends. What are the main differences that you see there, or also value in each of them?
So I think for me, it's really like the mastermind I'm just finishing this week. As
Mm-hmm.
it is, there's more like, let's call it professional quality to
Mm-hmm.
it, but also, so it's not people I would have usually probably connected with. But like
Mm-hmm.
listening to them, like when they share something, it still activates something within me. Because I truly believe always when a group comes together, there's like things that attract them that are similar but also different. So like from the similar things, it's always nice when you can relate. And
Mm-hmm.
then from the things you are different, there's always something for you to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Like with friends, there are usually more things that are similar with. And for me,
Mm-hmm.
the big
Yeah.
difference there is with my friends, I'm much more vulnerable than I
Mm-hmm.
might be in the professional mastermind. But I really here want to bring in then more of my vulnerability, like this Hosen runter, pants down, being just honest. And this is a process. Like
Yes, of
it's different.
course.
Even with, I have to say, even with friends, sometimes there's like, oh, paths that come up. It's like, oh, I actually haven't shown that to anyone or voiced it. But I
Mm-hmm.
think this is like the main difference to me. This
Mm-hmm.
really like this deeper vulnerability, but also then the difference, like this more like seeing, this is like interesting to hear because it always resonates at a certain level with me.
Mm-hmm.
And being like open, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I see. I think it just reminded me, or I just noticed something that I agree what you say. And actually also sometimes what happens when you come into a new group, you don't have this kind of like learned behaviors or established relationships, like maybe with friends or at work when you work together for a long time. And this can be then really refreshing that you might even open up more sometimes in a new group. I've had this experience before. Of course, it also takes, a common trust and knowing you're in a safe space. And so I think every time you enter a new peer group or in a new peer exchange experience, it can also be a chance to maybe, open up even more or feel freer that, yeah, I can be, a bit different, or maybe I can be more the one person I am today, because usually when we're friends or with family, we kind of get stuck in some roles
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. So I think that has also a really, yeah, it is also very valuable that this can
Mm-hmm.
happen. Um, have you experienced something like that before?
Yeah, I think that really resonates with me. Like you start with a blank slate
Hmm.
or blank page. And especially if you've done personal growth work and you're like with friends, they sometimes still see aspects of you which
Hmm.
probably aren't even like true for you anymore. But then you get into a group and it's like really, you can choose who do you want to be in this group.
Hmm.
Maybe even then things come up like, oh, I'm introvert. I don't really speak in groups, but that's only a story you tell yourself. So I really invite you then to challenge yourself. Maybe now you want to
Hmm.
be the class clown or like whatever comes up. And I
Yeah.
think this can be very
Hmm.
refreshing. and
Mm.
like play actually a bit with roles as well, not in the means that like you're faking something, but just bring a different aspect of you in, which you
Yeah.
might haven't brought in before. Or that's
Mhm.
like something trying out from time to time. But it's also, as you said, it's just like when you meet someone new, especially peer groups, and because you're working on your, for me, peer group is always like business related somehow.
Mhm.
And so my business is my passion, it's my soul. And then I come in and I can talk about this, and I really
Mhm.
know it comes from deep inside of me.
Mhm.
Then yeah, this is just so beautiful when you meet someone for the first time and you see if it resonates or doesn't, like how they see you through their eyes. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, that's cool. And actually, also, one thing you mentioned that if there's someone guiding it, a facilitator, that's also my experience. And in many different aspects, me as maybe an advisor or as a coach or participant, it doesn't matter. And I have many examples where I was maybe leading a workshop and you want that to happen, that people open up. It can be a peer exchange about personal things, of course. There it's a bit different on how we approach it or build it up. Or let's look in a business situation, maybe also maybe innovation work, strategy work in a workshop, and you're trying to get people to open up, and it's a bit your role. And then what can happen that even in a group that has known each other for a long time in a new setting, or someone being the facilitator, people surprise each other sometimes then. So that's also interesting to see that either you go into a new group or your existing group that is used to each other and has some established, behaviors or roles, they can also make this step forward. So in many ways, there's always potential for growth and for opening up, I think, as a general learning and observation. And also something that really resonates with me, what you said, is learning in general, learning from others. And, as you speak out and speak out to others, or you listen to others also a lot, you have a resonation somehow, with others.
Yeah.
And I think this is something so important for us as human beings. It's part of how we're wired, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that just comes to my mind is like the foundation of my work is
Mm-hmm.
actually like life is a mirror. So everything you experience on the outside is part of yourself. So when you enter a group with people, there will always be people who trigger you a little bit, like just something that annoys you. And guess what? This is something that is inside of you. And this is like such so beautiful when you are in a group, and especially
Mm-hmm.
if you have people who create this safe space. So I do actually like to have like a coach or facilitator there where this space can be created so you can really work with this and maybe also like voice it, because then so much can happen for you in the sense of that, in the sense of that you find clarity or more peace
Mm-hmm.
and calm, and you're not like fighting it inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is like the coolest thing about the peer group, because you really accelerate your journey when you're like coming together, like this collective mind. And I
Yes.
think
Mm-hmm.
the other aspect, what I like about a facilitated peer group or mastermind is that you have like a person, like a facilitator coach, because I chose my mastermind because of the facilitator, the coach. I was like, oh, I really want to learn from her because she lives a certain life or has built this kind of business or kind of being I actually desire myself. So it's really nice to be in a group with peers who you're on an eye level with, but you still have someone kind of as a role model guiding you who has half the way already before you. So you don't need to do it alone. And I think this, to me, also a big difference between the professional or friend
Mm-hmm.
peer group.
Yes, I see. Like you are inspired by the guide, uh,
Yeah.
or the one creating that peer group. It's also my experience, and also to add here as comparison, I have a lot of peers in my network, also a lot of entrepreneurs, and we meet. And I'm a really a guy who reaches out and does networking, and I think it's a great concept to do, to meet people. And, there's events where it's random or you go to with an intention, or sometimes I think a lot of times it's one-to-one. So that's not groups, that's just one-to-one exchanges. I think that also has a special note to it, I think, or a special quality. And there, my experience is that a lot of time within an hour, you can learn from each other so much. That's a good thing. And on the other hand, it's still a lot of times very random. So because you don't have someone who is, moderating it or asking maybe questions from the outside. So what I've learned there also is a bit, or what we can learn from that is maybe when we are experiencing now being in a guided or moderated peer group or mastermind, that maybe we start to create that habit that when I'm meeting someone else where I have a peer exchange, that I go in there with intention or some questions, or maybe I know the other one, I know what I could learn from that person or give that person, so that we can also bring those exchanges to the next level. And I think there's people out there that are already doing that. Like when you have a meeting with them up front, or even at the beginning, they ask, yeah, what's your goal, or what's in it for me, or where can I help you? Where can you help me? I think this is really great way to also then at eye level come in and try to really get the most out of the time,
Yeah.
such an exchange.
Yeah. I think I would like to add here, like with the intention, maybe, because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like a lot of our economy, and I'm not saying that you're doing this because not at all. It's like our economy is a lot like, oh, what can I get out of this and this
Mm.
and this?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
what if we go into a conversation? What can I give? What can I bring? Like this kind of intention as well.
Yeah,
And I think, yeah,
it's
I
a
think
good,
this,
good. I hear you, and I have a good example. I mentioned earlier before we started this recording. I went to a dinner. It's the founders dinner. It's organized by the Swiss Startup Association. And before I went there, I just thought or asked myself, what's my intention? Where do I go? Why do I go there? Because I didn't want to go there and then, because what happens there, it's a lot of random, you know, meetings or exchanges you have, and it's small talk, of course, but still trying to be prepared and trying to go in there with the intention of like, what can I share? Um, who am I in the end? That's the question. Because when you are in those conversations, when you have this feeling, oh, there's maybe a feeling of competition, or I need to sell something, or I need to say what people want to hear, you have, at least myself, I have this feeling of inner resistance or friction, or it's like some inner voice, a driver inside of me who is doing that.
mm-hmm.
And that's a bit how we work in our economy, because we always have to sell, or make progress, or people ask you, like, what do you do? Okay, that's good, that's bad, or I don't
Yeah.
understand, you know what I mean? So you're like, oh, okay. So we're so used to all these, drawers we put into, or
Yeah.
each question, pulls on something. So my recommendation is just, if you have prime time to prepare, or if you don't have, I don't know, but just remind yourself that who am I? Just trying to be truly yourself, and just there you share your story, probably what you believe in, your experiences, and then you automatically, you're not really in this selling mode. You're more in this mode of listening or trying to help, trying to understand. And if I think everybody can look back on many of these situations and are reminded of like the conversations they had where they think, oh, that was a nice talk and we really connected. And they usually happen when you're just really yourself and not trying to be a role, or you're not being triggered by all these you know uh,
Yeah.
things that are expected of us all the time.
Yeah. I love that. I think especially in our Swiss culture, it's a lot like, what do you do for work? Where do you work? Like,
Yeah.
this is how we define ourselves. But like,
Mm.
who am I more of that? Like outside, yeah. like bringing all these multidimensional parts in.
And
Yeah.
I think this is a very interesting point we're at, or an important topic, because especially peer groups, you go into probably with an expectation to, talk to people where you think I can profit or learn something, or they're in the same situation. And once you, as you said, this is then for me, this kind of like creating that safe space. Each of us can do that, Every time you enter in an exchange, you can be the one that creates that safe space in a way that you're not going there, what we just said, in asking those questions where there's always immediate judgment, And yeah, I think just kind of trying to understand who is the other person,
Yeah.
yeah, and go from there,
Yeah.
That's a bit what I'm also trying to do, and I still, have to learn, or sometimes, you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, and you just act or react in a
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
That's okay. It's like in a sense in it. It's always like, yeah, we're always learning. I think of like two things I would like to add here. Like, the first thing is what I started to do recently is when I went to a lot of conferences in autumn, was really go with the intention, like before I enter the conference or before I go there, really set this intention for myself, like, or like maybe I can say it's a prayer, I don't know, really like let me meet the right people, or the people I need to meet right now. And so I'm really open to all kind of conversations, because before I also was driven by like, oh, I need to find new clients. I need this, I need this. But really like, no, who am I to judge who is the right person for me to meet today? Maybe I'll have such an enriching conversation with another person, which leads me to like creating something else. You never know. So it's really also staying open and then forcing your own agenda. And like through this, I had really amazing, like so many beautiful conferences, which I was just like in the flow. And before it was like exhausting for me. So I think this
Yeah.
is, yeah, something I just wanted to voice, or maybe, yeah, something that resonates.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is regarding the boxes we put ourselves in, especially in Switzerland, and like bringing this more quality into an exchange. It's not only then who am I, but also asking how are you, and answering truthfully, and not like, oh yeah, I'm just okay, yeah, I'm okay, but you had like the worst day. Like we Swiss people are experts in this, like, oh yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
But like really, it's also then it's an invitation to actually do a checking, like how are you really feeling, and can you bring more of this into the conversation, and actually maybe voicing, no, I had a shit day, or I had an amazing day, I got up, I just was like in the
Yeah.
flow, but not always these standard answers. And I think this can be something so beautiful as well, because then you bring more energy into it. But I think for me, this is definitely something I'm
Yeah.
still learning as well. Like it's not easy, because you're so in automatic response to say, oh, I'm okay, I'm fine.
Yeah. Yes, totally. I think it comes down to the quality of the conversations that are more important, and especially at a networking event, not the quantity. And I think so I think it's good that we talked about that, because that really shows the difference of what kind of peer exchanges there is. And especially if you enroll in a peer group where it's like a mastermind, a program behind it. I think maybe we can bring up that term. You just mentioned it before. It's called the collective mind. I think now we talked a lot about how it is for yourself. Now maybe we could talk about a bit what happens then in the group. What is this collective mind? What are you there for? Why do people come together, and what's their maybe common goal? Being a collective, there's like some common interest in there. What's your take on that term and on that idea of, being a group together?
Yeah. So I think you can my experience from this is from a mastermind or also a retreats I attended. And I think it's very crucial that if you attend something like this and you go into like, yeah, this kind of space where you have coaches, facilitator, guides, whatever, that you have an exchange with them first and you voice what is that you desire, what can you bring in, but also what are your expectations, what is your vision and your desire. And with this, I think it's very important to create a, a group of people who share somehow a certain vision together or are at the same kind of point.
Yeah.
At the same kind, yeah, because I really have to say from the mastermind I attended, it was a really good lessons and I learned a lot. And it was very important for me to have first a talk with this coach I attended the mastermind with. But to be honest, I think she should have gone more in depth with questions where I am at in my journey, because during the mastermind, I felt like I was more advanced than the others. And for me, it then felt like when I brought stuff in, it was more pulling them. But I could see like there were still, as I said before, there were still that trigger me. So there were things for me to learn in this as well, obviously. And it's my decision that I entered this mastermind. So it's my own self-responsibility, but also to make next time really sure what is my vision and who are the others who she will join, like how will she facilitate to ask more and better questions to be able to really enter this collective mind, because then you're in a space and if you want it or not, it does something with you. Like it just activates you. If like the others are sharing, there's always something that happens within you as well. You don't even need to do a lot. And I think this is actually beautiful, because otherwise sometimes you just need to think so hard about the solution for questions or whatever. But then when you voice it and you realize, oh, someone else is actually going through the same, it helps. It's again this relatedness, which helps you to bring then the vision further forth. And I think that's very important, that everything can have its space. Like even if it's like the mastermind to build your own business, like your personal life or like what's going in should still have its place, because it always affects us. But I think it's so crucial to always come back to the vision. And I think this is like then how a collective mind can create like the outcome you desire as an individual, but it's actually we realize and it's bigger than yourself. It's kind of has this take for me, or like that's how it felt then for me. It's not, even though we might do similar things, it still has, each of it has its own individual thing. And I think this is also very nice. And it's not competition, but it's collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean. So being at eye level or on the same level, it's not just, having mutual respect for each other and being open. It's also a bit, where am I in my life or in this question, or what's, what do I want to get out of this mastermind or this peer group work together? Is a good question to start with. So what you said is oftentimes in masterminds, the coaches or hosts, they kind of do a pre-selection process, I guess, to make sure that at least the people have like a common direction or vision or goals, what they want to get out of it. I think it's very important. Yeah, that you are aware of this, of course. And the other thing, also what you mentioned, still, and then it's still a good thing that there's different backgrounds and so on, because even if, let's say, in general you are at a similar point in life, and you want to go into this experience and move forward together, you will always bring different perspectives personally into the group. Whereas maybe, let's say, you're 20 years younger than someone else, but in some ways, in some topic on something, you're ahead of him or her, So I think that's also very interesting to see that. So there's value in being different, or at you're having different experiences. But as probably you said, or I understood how you said it, and I also see it, is it helps, or it should be clear from your expectations why everybody is there and doing it, and what are they aiming for, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so also very important, the whole expectation management, I guess.
Yeah. From like a personal perspective as someone who joins a mastermind, but also I think from the facilitator, and that's I think it's very important to make like a dating, like to find if it's the right match.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I also like people interested in our mastermind, and they were like, but who are the other people? Like, how can I learn
Yeah.
from them? And it's again this, what I said before, what can I get from them instead of like, oh, what can I bring?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is
True.
very important, especially if you're entering a collective mind. It's not only about you, but it's for the whole group, that there's space for everyone.
Yeah. And especially by expressing, because maybe it's the first time you express something ever
Mm-hmm.
in such a way, or in such a context, or with at eye level, or you know, with people who are in very similar situations. And I think that is what helps you to move forward, and um, yeah, stands for personal growth by being really open and express things maybe for the first time or in a new way. And what I like about maybe this idea, or when this happens, or there's another term we haven't spoken about here, is the sparring. I like somehow
Mm-hmm.
sparring. You know, sparring for me is a bit getting things out of each other in a way, you know? And yeah, so it's an encouragement to bring everything you have to the table, and open up, and you have immediate responses, and you have immediate feedback or resonance for yourself once you say something out loud, maybe for the first time. And this will help you to move on also a lot.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also if you're not the own founder, or but if you have a co-founder or someone you do business with, I think this
Mhm.
can also be very valuable
Yeah.
to come to a group together or even alone, but maybe the other person like just is aware of it as well, because then you're expanding even more of what you already have together. And I think this can be also very
hmm
um yeah, useful
Yeah, I think
in the
that's
same
probably
way.
a perfect example of one of the main common challenges maybe people could have that also come to our group. You know, they're in a transformational phase. Um, they've been entrepreneurs, you know, and they ask themselves, okay, what's next? And often or not, they might be alone, yeah, to restart, or at least they're alone with those questions, maybe, or maybe they're alone at being at this point, or maybe they're alone by um, taking their time to do this now, you know. So then just knowing that there's others that have maybe the same kind of uncertainties, fears, or are taking the same leap of faith in a way, it really helps. Yes.
Yeah. I actually have a question for you, which I'm
Oh
like
my God.
wanting to get out. Um, so for me, with like the soulpreneur, it feels like we are paving a new path. Like it's a different kind of doing business. You're really doing it from within, you're doing it from the soul. And it's not maybe even something you do for financial profit only, but you kind of maybe it's more like it's something bigger. And in the
hmm
sense of maybe like what you're putting out there, but also how it feels for you. Like it's for me, I feel like this is a new way of doing business or talking about it, maybe especially in the niche we are in Switzerland, even though we are speaking to a broader audience. I'm wondering, how is it for you to talk about certain topics in the peer exchanges you have been in for a longer time, or you're meeting now again new ones?
Mm. I'm
Like,
not sure if I understood correctly. Say it again. Sorry.
like
My brain.
Maybe first question is, do you agree like with like maybe a pathing a new way of doing business that's like the
Yes.
soulpreneur? And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's something more unique
Mm-hmm.
or like new in Switzerland and everything, or like also in the broader region or wherever like you're in. And then I'm wondering, how is it in the peer exchanges you have been in before you started more the soulpreneur journey, or also
Mm-hmm.
with people you like entrepreneurs you meet now where you have a peer exchange? How is it to talk about this new way of doing business or being a soulpreneur? Like, do you bring all of you in? Is it like natural? Does it come, or is there like kind of a block?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So maybe sticking with the second question, um, coming back to your first, you have to repeat it again. My brain is a bit slow because there's so many things you said. I'm trying to find the perfect answer, but maybe I'm mentally over over. No, but I think what happened for me is, I know now. Also the other answer, but I think, yeah. Then let's go to question number one. I try to answer that first. I think what I realized, and it's not a concept I came up with, I also read about it, but it also made sense for me is, because I left the last company, I would still be there if I haven't left, because, I was burned out and I was in a depression and I just needed a break. So I naturally, in a bad or good way, came into a transition phase. And what happened, yeah, I went on a journey to my inner self, a lot of personal development work still going on for sure. It happened even before I left there, I was in therapy and so on. And I think what I realized in a way, or a question, or things, um, I see that when you're an entrepreneur and you're founding a company, what is it actually that really not triggered you, but what were you trying to um, answer, or to what inner driver or what inner voices of your personality were you trying to satisfy? Maybe that's the right term. Were you trying to prove yourself that you can make it? Because I don't know, you had maybe some experiences in childhood, or in how you were raised, that were hard for you, and you wanted to prove the world. So it's more something maybe that you're trying to heal, or or whatever, or you have a really an ambition to maybe make as much as money as possible. Okay, and then what if you do? And then what does this answer for you? So I think um and once you're over that, maybe over this, maybe you're, I left because I was, mentally not able to stick with it. But some people leave because they sell it to make a huge success. Or a lot of people probably when they stop, it's because they run out of money or it doesn't work out. So no matter what it was, the reason why you're coming into a transition phase, and when you're looking back, you're trying to understand, why did I do that? Why did I put so much energy and time into it, and I was believing so strongly in that to make it happen, and now it didn't, or maybe it ended somehow. So I think this is a really strong um, question in a way, looking back, because it also then gives you kind of like a perspective. And now next, what's next? Should I do the same with the same ambition, or the same intention again, or not? And for me, it's not, because I took a break, and I started to understand who I am, in a way. And it's still a journey, of course. And I think that's a bit what the soulpreneur is about, is taking the time and um, trying to find those answers about who you truly are, and when I'm an entrepreneur again, where and how do I want to put all this energy again into something, and what am I expecting in return?
Mhm.
And it's a tough question, and it's a process, and But it's a good one, I would say, because it really pushes you to really trying to understand, your drivers, your even your dark sides, your demons. Maybe it's just very that's a lot of psychology stuff, but also maybe how you wired, how you functioned. What I learned, for example, is um, I'm a highly sensitive person. So I'm a neurodiverse. I don't know. And so my brain works in a different way. I never knew that before. So I can look back 20 years. I'm like, now I understand. So if this happens a bit, I understand. And now, okay, I know how I'm wired. I know how I did this maybe. I know what I don't want to do again, or I know the whys that I don't want to, pursue. I think all of these things um, are happening, or this is a bit the intention, the goal of why we're offering this Soulpreneur mastermind, I would say, to just go through that inner development and growth process, that you find those answers, or at least new starting points and tools and people who are maybe there then also along that journey further on to take those new steps forward.
Mm-hmm. So it's really like a way of, I want to use the word forcing. Instead of forcing, you're going into flow. You're going into the flow of your soul, of your like who you truly are. And it's like first really an unraveling what is actually not truly me. And then really connecting deeper to this true part of you, and then
Mm-hmm.
creating from there on. And
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like for me, this isn't a topic. So, for example, we both went to a conference, a startup entrepreneur conference a couple of weeks ago. And this wasn't a topic that people really talk about, because
Mm-hmm.
most entrepreneurs, especially when they're first starting out, or also maybe later on, it's accelerating strategy,
Mm-hmm.
marketing, and all these
Yes.
topics. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering, how is it for you when you go into peer exchanges now? Can you bring in this soul part? Does it feel natural, or is there like a block? Or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
especially maybe also with people you knew from your previous entrepreneur real
Yeah, that was
life
also
and
part of your question.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it's funny, probably I just have to learn or establish more of those buzzwords, as you said, in growth, marketing, and so on. Maybe it would help, but they're not commonly used yet. So what I want to say, it takes a bit more time to establish this or go into this kind of conversation. And I think what happened is that just the entrepreneurs I meet or have been meeting even before, I'm naturally going more into this direction in our conversation, because I think these are general questions everybody has. And if you're the one maybe that is not opening up maybe all this, yeah, how is the growth and what's your next goal and financing round or whatever, I don't know. So you can steer it a bit. And what also happened, I just happened to maybe meet more of those people. I cannot
Mhm.
explain it why, or maybe I just, saw them or saw a post or heard them talking to, and I just reached out. And so it's both. So you just naturally started doing it a bit more, and people are interesting to hear because they really ask, how are you doing? Because a lot of people know now a bit my story, what I went through. And they're still interested, they're curious, what are you doing next and why are you doing this? So it's still fine if they ask questions also about business. And then from there, I look at it as an invitation to maybe go to a bit, how I work now or how I think. And then it's also s- totally intentionally meeting people and talking about really what they truly care about and why
Mhm.
are they doing what they're doing, and also a bit what they're struggling with. In the end, we're still struggling with things, even if you have maybe clarity and you feel like a purpose, or you feel like in touch with your inner self or soul, whatever you want to call it. It's not exclusive. You can call it the way you want. I think it's what it comes down to is you usually how does it feel, you know? How does it feel
Hmm.
for you? And when there's feelings involved, there's also things that will stress you and you know how it was maybe before. And so I think these struggles, talking about this bit, these struggles and also a bit what it gives, you know, back to you, what it kind of energy gives back to you. It's really fun actually then also to speak about these things when someone else says, hey, look, I took in this decision and it felt so right and I'm so happy and things started to fall in place, or I said no to this because of that and that. Yeah, so you're starting to have different kinds of conversations,
Hmm.
just I guess more personal, deeper, and more about feelings also.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, thanks for
No,
that.
I think a reason why I also asked this question is like for me, it's like all, not always like it's very clear. So I'm like very highly sensitive person, and I always felt very alone with this. So I kept this very
Mm,
deep inside of me. And then also talking about this, working from the inside out and everything, kept it all so deep inside of me. So sometimes it has been a journey for me to open up, to talk about these things. And like there was like fear behind it to talk
mhm,
more about these things. And so, yeah, it's beautiful. And I love, yeah, that we met and how you do it. It's like you give
mhm,
yourself full permission to be this. And it's amazing, like the people you attract, you see like when you're opening up like really like who you truly are, you start to attract different kind of conversations and people, as you said. And I think, yeah.
mhm. Yeah, and just one thing to add here a bit. You know, I just said um, I found out I'm highly sensitive, and there's a scientific science behind that. You know, there again, it happens that you're trying to give answers to people on in a rational way. You know, but oftentimes that's all just not necessary in the end. You are the way you are, and just being the way you are and saying things you just feel like they're right for you
Yeah.
in this moment. Or I think it's a lot about sharing emotions,
Yeah.
and that didn't happen. um and yeah, I think it's in the end, you know, what I really like about when you really open up and trying to be the an entrepreneur, let's say from the soul, or someone that truly understands themselves, how they wired, how they work, you know, mentally or even physically, everything. Um, what's cool about that? Now I forgot what I wanted to say. See, I confused myself again. um, how did I start? Sorry, I lost my thought.
Um, when you
Maybe
open
after
up, yeah, when
that.
you open up, like as you said, with like the highly sensitive person, or like you, like as I understood it, you want to say like, oh, it's about you trying to put yourself maybe in a box again, but then it's again coming back to your soul. It's just something who you are and bring it everywhere in what you're doing. That
Mhm.
was like I felt the summary of what you were
Yeah,
saying.
yeah. I think I probably wanted to say that um, it in the end it makes things easier,
Yeah,
because
just flows.
yeah, it flows. Maybe that's
Yeah,
yeah, it's yeah, you don't have to play a role in a way, or
yeah,
what's expected. And yeah, I think what I wanted to say, you're starting to, yeah, now I know what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say is that as an entrepreneur, you have such a high learning curve, and I really enjoyed that all the time. I was doing building businesses, and what I'm doing now is learning more and more about myself. And it's a different kind of learning. Before you were learning about topics, about, you know, what is marketing, what is customer success, what is growth tactics. And you always face with new situations, you have to learn and adapt quickly. And what's interesting then to look at you and look at like, okay, how was I able over 10 years, let's say 10 years of building a business and learning new things, facing new challenges all the time? And then you look at yourself and all of your resources, and you're starting to understand how much you have been learning, or you're starting to understand how you actually work, that you're able to perform that way. And then it gets really interesting. And then yeah, exactly. That's what I wanted to say. Then you start to understand how you work mentally, physically, emotionally. And then you want to actually um, do things in a way that are good for you also, and where you can also leverage your potentials. Let's put it that way, that maybe a weakness becomes a strength, or that you're aware of something that you turn into a strength. And yeah, then that you also make hard choices in a way that are really true to what you want. I think that's also a strong thing then.
Yeah. I think it's very crucial to understand, or like always, like it's taking actually an inventory and analysis of like, yeah, how do you work? And am I actually working in my flow state, or am I working against it because I've been conditioned to do so? And if I think when you really continuously work, from my experiences with myself and also my clients, and you continuously work against your flow state, your soul blueprint, whatever you want to call it, there will come somehow. You never feel truly good somehow, but you think it may be normal. And I think maybe with this, we can also conclude the soul talk for today and send you on the way with the question, what does soul mean to you, or being a soulpreneur? And also, like, if this word triggers you a bit, why do you reject the word? Why does it trigger you? And where have you maybe deprived your soul of its natural being state, flow state? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, because in the end it's a very personal, and we're of course interested then to hear and learn about this, and probably hear all kinds of stories or new words and new perspectives. So very looking forward to meeting lots of you out there. And if ever you have questions, you find us also on LinkedIn, reach out to us, or go to our website, thesoulpreneur.ch. If you want to get in touch and maybe become part of our peer group, would be nice. So take
Yes.
care, guys, and thanks for your attention.
Bye. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Jessica. Bye bye.